episode 305 of the Global from Asia podcast. Talking more PPE, trading. Is it the new crypto?
Welcome to the Global from Asia podcast, where the daunting process of running an international business is broken down into straight-up, actionable advice. And now, your host, Michael Michelini.
Thank you, everybody, for choosing to download and listen to Global from Asia podcast up to episode 305 here in early May of 2020. Hopefully you're still enjoying this many years from now, and it's it's been almost over a month now. I've been back in my wife's hometown, Shenyang. Of course, was the first couple of weeks in the hotel quarantine, and now I'm in the in-laws. So still keeping this podcast going weekly. It's something we try to keep our best to keep going here. This week is talking about PPE wave, this insanity. I said in a little intro clip, is it the new crypto? I talked to a lot of media people and Reuters, Wall Street Journal. I talked to people, all these different journalists, in China, around the world all the time. They're finding me online and asking me. And some of them said, this seems like the same kind of people that were doing ICOs and crypto. So I don't know. What do you think of that? But today's guest, we have Mo, or Mohammed is his full name, but I know him as Mo. He's come to our cross-border summit back in 2016, I believe, or 17, and many other events, and in our community. Really nice guy, really, really amazing guy from Holland. And he's him and I are on a similar wavelength a lot. So we've been chatting, during this pandemic nightmare, and he was in China the whole time. He's been in China many, many years, but he hasn't even left mainland China since last almost summer, maybe I think September. And he's also in the import-export game. He's a part of a factory in Guangzhou. So he's ridden the wave of this PPE trading. That's what I called today's show. And we have this interesting conversation. We still keep in touch even after the interview. We'll also share some other stories in our blah, blah, blah session after the interview. So if you want to hear some more stories that him and I have been talking about, as well as others that are really insane, like really crazy, it feels like it's got to be scams, a lot of these. So we really got to remember, this stuff, this PPE is meant to get to hospitals and doctors and nurses, people on the front lines, right? But we're talking to crazy people all around the world that, I don't know, maybe they're just don't have a job, don't have anything to do, and they're seeing opportunities to trade this stuff. But Mohammed deals with a lot of it. He's in his factory. He started doing thermometers, so he gets lots of insights of people contacting him. I'll share some other stories he told me after. So without further ado, let's get into the show. Also, we have LoadPipe, and we started in this PPE stuff. So if you want to do group buys with us, as well as webinars and others, sign up for a closed beta at loadpipe.com. We're working hard to make that a way to organize these kind of chaotic times. Let's tune into the interview now. All right, everybody. We are having some more and more of these GFAVIP.com private calls. It's great. I mean, honestly, we're just focusing on private, small groups of people on calls talking about specific topics. We're getting some of our podcast guests coming back for our an encore session to talk about their topic more to our private members, and it supports this community. If you enjoy this show, if you enjoy what you're doing, and you want to connect with more people in a smaller environment, I'd love to have you join. It's application only. We don't want to just let anybody in, but go to gfavip.com and check it out. I'd love to see you there. All right, thank you everybody for choosing to listen to another Global from Asia podcast. I've been excited to get our guest today on. We've got to know each other through the community over the last few years, and we've met quite a few times, and we've been in touch on throughout the years. So it's my pleasure to invite Mohammed Berrekkal onto the show. And
thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, Mohammed.
Yeah, no, thank you for inviting me. Glad to be here.
So a little bit of background. You're in Foshan City, down in the Guangdong, or do you want me to give us some
intro? I live in Foshan, but my company is in Guangzhou. So I commute between Foshan and Guangzhou on a daily basis. Yeah, my company is in Guangzhou. Uh, yeah, I
Okay.
don't know what else you want me to
Okay.
tell.
I mean, I could. Yeah. So of course, people know. Those are cities in South China. Of course, I think most people know Guangzhou, and Foshan is a city also right next door. And so you've been in. How long have you been in China now? You're
Yeah,
from Holland originally, right? And
yeah, exactly. I'm from Amsterdam. I first came to China in 2012, but I've been living in China since 2015, so about 5 years now.
okay, exciting, man. And a lot has changed today.
Yeah.
There's so much we should talk about. Honestly, maybe we can hear a little bit about your own business experiences, and hopefully we can touch on that today. But we're in touch often, and today I thought it would be interesting to have you. You've been in China since this whole pandemic started, and through the whole thing, and so I kind of titled this topic, riding the wave of this PPE market mania, from your perspective, living in China as a foreigner, a business owner, a business person, and we were gonna say before we started recording, but when was the last time you were out of China? Maybe we'll start with that. You moved there in 2015. You've been there first time
Yeah, so
2012.
I've been the last time I moved out of China was in September. September I went to I think it was Malaysia. So I've
Okay.
been in China since September.
Wow. So that's there's no question.
That's a long time.
So I think no matter what article or politician or news media you listen to, that was all before any of this COVID. I think maybe some people said
Yeah,
September, but I don't think most people say it's maybe early as October, but I don't think anybody said anything.
yeah. The first time I read something about it was in December, but back then it was just like some virus in some animals they found, and just something very small, and no one really paid attention to it, including myself. It's just like, oh, I mean, this happens all the time.
Yeah,
And
I
then
know.
in January, the first time I read is like they say it can be like transmitted from animals to humans, and so I was like, okay, so this is starting to get a bit scary. So I asked my friends in Wuhan, and they were like, no, don't read that fake news. Nothing's going on. Everything is fine. People like to exaggerate things, and that's also kind of what I thought about it. It's like just being a bit exaggerated. And then slowly things start to get more intense and more heated. But it was still, there was like, it's in Hubei, it's in Wuhan, it's far away, it's still okay. And then everything exploded.
Yeah, I know. So I'll put my spot too. Like I remember, like you, I think you and I are similar. I remember December reading about it somewhere very vaguely because I had come back to China from Thailand in the end of December, very end, like December 22nd. I came back to my wife's hometown here. And I remember reading it in some kind of news articles. Like you said, nobody said it was a big deal. And in January, I flew out of China, January 8th, I think, and there was nothing, nobody was talking. I think it's like you, like everybody says it's not a big deal, don't worry. Um, so I went down to the Philippines. So it's, but I think it was,
Yeah, yeah.
so you stuck around for Chinese New Year. A lot of times, especially us foreigners, we get out of here because it's so quiet. But you
Yeah,
were planning to stick around for Chinese New Year?
yeah. Well, what happened actually is my sister-in-law was about to get married in Chinese New Year. So that's why we stuck around.
Oh, I see.
And I actually traveled to Yunnan. Uh, and I was on the road when the lockdown happened. So like when we left, we thought it's still okay. It's not that bad. And then I drove the car to Yunnan, and like on the way, all of a sudden, like, the panic broke out, and Wuhan was in lockdown, and we were like busy driving. And then we arrived in Yunnan for the wedding, and the wedding was supposed to be like in 2 or 3 days. And then the government says no weddings allowed. Uh, and then basically, all of China got into lockdown, and then I was stuck in Yunnan for a month.
Wow, you were. I didn't even know that. So
Yeah.
you couldn't even travel,
I
right?
couldn't even go back. Yeah. And foreigners were not allowed to stay in a hotel. So I had to stay in the house with my in-laws for 1 month,
Oh, yeah. Well, it's
which
kind of
was
like me
okay.
now. We're
Yeah.
on a similar. Wow, so Yunnan for a month in the in-laws, like, we have very similar situations then. And so then I guess that must have been, I think January. We had another interview with Hugh Bell. He's another foreigner. He's in Chengdu, and he says it was like right at Chinese New Year dinner, like right around the actual like right when
Yeah,
Chinese
yeah.
New
It
Year
was
was
like
happening.
January 23rd, I think, or
Yeah,
24th, I can't remember, but exactly like the time of Chinese New Year. So
I remember being in the Philippines and reading maybe it was YouTube videos, but they were saying it's going to get crazy because all these Chinese people, it's going to be like the biggest amount of traveling in the world, right? The Chinese New Year holiday is when,
yeah,
and that's right when the virus was spreading, so all these people brought it everywhere. That's what I remember reading about. So,
yeah, yeah.
but you
Yeah,
had,
I don't know the exact number, but I read that like around 5 million people left Wuhan. Like they were traveling out of Wuhan in that time. I mean, that's a lot.
yeah, I don't want to get into
That's, I
conspiracy
mean,
theories. I'm not a fan of conspiracy, but obviously,
yeah,
if you
no,
want
no,
to
no,
spread a
no.
virus, you'd put it in one of the very populated areas right before a major travel season, so
Yeah, the
people.
timing is just horrible. Absolutely horrible,
Yeah,
the
it's
timing.
unbelievable how it. So it's
Yeah.
so a month. So then you were like, so I guess mid like January, like most of February, you were also in your wife's hometown
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
a
I
little
was there
hotel.
until almost the end of February.
It's so
And then,
crazy though. I
yeah,
don't. Oh, go ahead. You couldn't stay in a hotel because you're a foreigner. Like that was that
yeah, yeah,
all of
yeah.
China, or was that just your like that small? It seems like a smaller area or less
Well, it was in
foreign.
Kunming. Well, Kunming is a big city. Well, I mean, for us, it's a big city. For China, maybe not that big, 4 million people. But
Yeah.
and no, it was in many places in China. I like from what I recall. But for Kunming, I know for sure. But other places, I've heard, but I'm not sure. And
Hmm.
that's also like one of the reasons. Like eventually, when like Foshan opened up again, I had to drive back, and it's like a 1,500-kilometer drive, and I just drove it in one go because there's nowhere else to stay, and I was too afraid to stop anywhere. And also, if I got out of the highway, maybe it would be quarantined or not allowed in, or can't stay in a hotel. So I just left early in the morning and arrived late at night.
Okay.
Yeah,
And so let's talk about this whole PPE mania, because so you are honestly I know you do quite a few different things like us, like me and many other listeners, but you are also in the manufacturing. You're in the manufacturing world, right? In
yeah,
Guangdong, you're right in Foshan, Guangzhou. It's like a manufacturing capital of the world, of China and the world. So what started happening with this whole manufacturing industry? Because I remember being in talking to people about not being able to make products in China because of the virus. So that one month there was no. I guess it's
yeah,
Chinese
yeah,
New Year
yeah.
too. But what was happening with manufacturing at that time?
Yeah. So, well, our factory was not allowed to open until March 1st. So like we had like back then the rest of the world wasn't affected yet, and I had like customers who kept pushing because they wanted to get their orders, but the factory is closed. There's nothing we could do. Plus I was stuck in another province, uh, and also a lot of our workers were stuck as well, so there was like nothing we could do. And then when we came, uh, I came back and our factory opened like March 1st. But then we had the problem that a lot of our suppliers, they couldn't open yet because a lot of their workers were from Wuhan or from Hubei.
Yep.
So then we had two problems. Is first of all, our supplies became a lot more expensive, and a lot of our factories or our supplies, they couldn't deliver in time, or they couldn't deliver at all because they didn't have enough workers, or their factory couldn't open yet, or they just had uh, orders but not enough workers to finish it all in time. So we had to cancel the orders we had basically because we couldn't deliver. And then when everything started to get back to normal, the rest of the world started to get infected, and no more orders.
Yeah.
Almost
Yeah.
no more. I think like almost 80% of our orders were canceled.
Yeah. So
So that's when we
I don't know if you want to share what kind of product or category were you making?
oh yeah, so we make digital displays. like advertising displays, like the screens you see at the airport, bus stations, outside on the roads. Also, like you see them in the KFC, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the interactive whiteboards.
Oh,
Like you see
cool.
them like in companies for the conference rooms or for teaching.
Yeah.
So those are the products that we make.
Yeah, okay. So I can see that not being so needed in his nightmare. I mean, of course, a lot of products. So I'm trying to, so this whole transition, like you're leading towards in this talk, right? So you originally, like many others, manufacturing in China had all of the foreigners or Westerners or people from around the world pushing you and other factories to make the product quick because they need it for their markets. But then the virus goes global, and then the whole
Yeah,
world kind of flipped upside down. So
yeah,
I also want to make sure I ask because we're talking about PPE. So I remember we were chatting and you said you actually were helping Chinese companies import PPE or like masks into China when it was in China. Uh, Maybe we can share a
yeah.
little bit
So
about
when
that.
so when the whole virus thing broke out, I mean, there were like two problems. The first problem is like everyone needed a mask in China, and the second problem is most factories were closed. Uh, so they didn't have enough supplies, and a lot of the factories who make PPE are in Hubei, in Wuhan. So that's another problem. So it was very hard to get masks. So actually, I had like a lot of friends or Chinese I know that they would literally just fly to Malaysia, fly to Thailand, fly to Korea, fly to Japan, and just come back with suitcases filled with masks. I mean, this I'm talking about the just like people who sell on WeChat and things. But it was really crazy, really hard to get masks at that time. And the prices, I mean, a box of the three-ply mask was like 10 or 20 RMB. I'm talking a box of 50 pieces. And then when the virus broke out, like people were paying 5 RMB a mask, for one. It was absolutely crazy. And then slowly companies start to open up, especially like in the medical field, and they were trying to source the non-woven fabric, sourcing masks, and also especially non-woven fabric to make it here in China. And I was just helping them to source some from Russia, Turkey, and other places. And it was just absolutely crazy how fast those prices were uh, going up at that time. I mean, now it's even more crazy, but like
Yeah.
uh, prices were like doubling almost every day. It was absolutely insane.
Yeah, so I'll just recap here what I took some notes too, but honestly, I don't even know how much masks cost before this. I wasn't obviously like many wasn't looking or involved. You were saying it's like 10 to 20 RMB a box of how many? Like three ply those blue
50
ones.
pieces.
50
Yeah, yeah, those
pieces.
those cheap ones,
Yeah.
those disposable ones. They were like super cheap.
Unbelievable. But then probably starting into mid January or late January, that started going crazy in China, right? So now, and probably was in January when you were like at your in-laws, you were helping people import. The,
Well, at first I was just looking for myself, me and my family, because I couldn't find them anywhere because it was sold out everywhere. It was like absolutely impossible to get any masks. So I was just at first I was just looking for myself, and then I found a lot of people who were just like flying them in, and they
got
were
it,
just the prices were crazy. And then after that, people started to contact me if I could help them source from Europe or other places.
got it. And I don't know. I'm thinking of listeners, but even myself, how are people, are anybody able to fly in and out at that time? That's kind of what's crossing my mind as you're saying people are bringing it
Well,
in
at
their
that time,
luggage.
there wasn't a lockdown yet, and it was
Oh,
basically
okay.
only Hubei. It was only Hubei, Wuhan, Hubei, but the
Oh,
rest of China, it was still everyone was just traveling in and out.
I see. Now I understand.
Yeah, it was at the beginning.
Which
I mean,
which
the,
was
the
what?
restrictions were much later. It was like end of January, like
Okay, so
from
yeah,
January
I wasn't here,
24th
so I
until
don't
January
exactly.
30th, something like this. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't in China at the time, so I'm not. I was also mostly talking to my wife at the time, but so lockdowns only was in Wuhan starting from like the 23rd, I think, of January.
Yeah, yeah. It was first Wuhan, and then Hubei, and then also like around Hubei, and then it was. after that, it just started to go super fast.
Well, I see. Interesting. And so now let's make this transition. I guess the lockdowns in China are ended, are opening, factories are reopening, and then everybody starts manufacturing PPE in China or selling and trading PPE, which is now like even your factory made a
Yeah.
pivot. So, you
Yeah,
know,
well, we still try to stay in the field of electronics. Like we make thermometers or the facial recognition display with thermometer or
mm,
thermoscanner inside of it. So like the products we make are still a little bit in line with our business because I
okay,
mean still electronics, it's because the thermometer is still used like an LCD display and a main board, and the facial recognition thermoscanner it's still like a display, but you just with facial recognition software, but we just added the thermoscanner on it, so it's
okay,
still a bit in line. I mean, it's not like we make face masks as well now,
I
but I
see.
know like a lot of competitors of ours. I mean, they just literally like move their production lines aside and put the face mask machines in their factories. And like a lot of our competitors, like when I check their websites, I could just see like the whole PPE section.
Yep. And I think I
Very,
just make sure listeners, I think probably have learned what PPE means is personal protective equipment, I think, right? Like, which technically means
yeah.
it kind of course, everybody talks about masks, but it can also be the clothing, anything about,
Yeah, the face shield, the goggles, the gloves.
yeah, all this insanity. So, yeah, so you guys started, yeah, it's good. You at least kept your core competency within the newer world of supply demand
Yeah,
with,
yeah, we had to. I mean, because like our costs, of course, keep running. We need to pay the rent. We need to pay our workers, but our normal business just stopped. So at least now with the thermometers and the facial recognition, thermal scanners, at least we still have some business going on, and we're able to keep our business alive.
sure. So I don't know, it's hard to always talk about pricing, but you gave some pricing earlier. Now, I don't know if we want, I could also put some of my insights of what I see in the market, but what kind
Yeah,
of
sure.
pricing? I guess I'm just trying to give people an idea of how this like chart of price changed. So
Yeah,
it
well,
probably went even higher when it
um,
went global, right? Like it was maybe like kind of like what your feeling was with cost of a mask when it was only in China versus cost of a mask when it was overseas or global. I'm sure it went a lot more. I don't know if kind of give us an
yeah,
idea.
I can give an example. For example, the thermometers. I mean, like a thermometer, like before the whole virus thing. I mean, I'm talking about the wholesale price for the finished good was around $5 to $7, whereas now it's $25 to $30. That's a huge difference.
Yeah, it's really nuts.
Yeah, it's really a lot. Yeah, like I said, also the 3-ply mask. I mean, it used to be just I'm talking retail prices now for the face mask. Like in China, you pay like 10 to 20 RMB. It kind of depends which type you bought. So let's say 20 RMB for 50 pieces, whereas now retail price people are paying I don't know 3 to 5 RMB for one.
Yeah, I think I see it in the stores in
It's
Shenyang for like 100 RMB a box of 50, which is like 50.
yeah now because it's like the government sponsored and like this in China it's okay now. It's like 100. In my pharmacy that's 150 RMB,
Okay.
150 RMB for 50 pieces, which comes to how much?
It's still like,
Like 3 RMB for one? Yeah, it's 3 RMB for one.
which is like 50 cents US.
Yeah, about, which is roughly seven and a half times more than it used to be.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. I mean, if you look at the non-woven fabric they use, I mean, like pre-virus, I don't know exactly. I think it was just like $2,500 per ton, whereas now the prices are up to $50,000 a ton. It's ludicrous. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we had to realize this, like, yeah, it's good you brought that up. It's not just about, I guess there's a lot to a price, but, whether it's this PPE nightmare or anything in the world, like raw material, oil costs, transportation costs, labor costs,
Yeah,
all of that is brought into.
transportation is much more expensive. The raw materials are a lot more expensive, and a lot of factories they had to hire new workers because their workers were stuck in Hubei. But still, of course, the factories are making a lot of money. It's really
Yeah.
we can't deny that.
Yeah, for sure. Of course, they have their margin. Like I'm trying to make a date for when it really went nuts. I was in the Philippines. I remember having a nice dinner with somebody else in the community, Andy Lee. You might have met him in the community, but he was visiting from Singapore. We were having a nice dinner in Manila with some of my colleagues at Alpha Rock, and that was literally like March 10th or something like that. Like, I don't know exact date, but it was like the second week of March, and we were not talking about this at all. Like, maybe it was like 8th or 9th of March, something like this. Look at the calendar. Maybe it was ninth Monday or Tuesday. We were not talking about any of this. Like, we were not thinking we weren't going to be able to travel. He was traveling back to Singapore in a couple of days. Other people were traveling like soon. Somebody else was going to Sweden soon. Like, there was nobody was thinking that the world was going to be shut down, and that was like the second week of March. I went on the 13th later that week on Friday, the 13th to the 12th, just a couple days after that. I went to an island called Bohol, like a small little island you might know in Philippines, for a retreat for the team, and everything shut down. Literally, like it was like the middle of March when my world just shut down. Like nothing could work anymore. So I don't know if that was when the pricing went crazy. I don't know if you can remember as clearly as I can, because that was when I remember the virus being like taken seriously, about middle of March.
Well, okay, so basically there are two separate things here. The first thing is like, yeah, in the middle of the March is about when the whole world went crazy. Like in our experience, the beginning of March, we were finding like, okay, it's over. We can get back to business. Everything is going back to normal again. We started talking with customers again about orders and things. And then all of a sudden, we started to hear about Italy and Spain getting infected, especially the situation. Italy was very bad. And then after that, the whole world exploded. But the prices actually they got crazy already before that, when it was in China. At that time, the prices were already like really, really high. Because I mean, if you look at me, China has what, 1.4 billion people. I mean, even if we take all of Europe and the USA combined, their demand is still smaller than all of China, you know? So when it exploded in China, I mean, the demand from China was just absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
So I think that's what skyrocketed the prices. And after that, the gap was very short. So, yeah, I mean, I think the prices maybe have increased even more now because the demand in China is still here. But yeah, I think it was middle of March that, yeah, it's like the second round, in my opinion. Like the first round was China, the second round is like the rest of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, feels like it. I mean,
But
for me,
yeah, I also
okay.
think, yeah, I've checked like a lot of factories, and I also see like it's like a lot of factories were registered like in the third or fourth week of March, just right after it started to go crazy, you know. So there's like, I don't know how many tens of thousands of new businesses opened up for PPE, and like a lot of them, if you check their business license, you see like March 20th, March 24th, etc. You know, and then it's like, I don't know. Yeah, like someone mentioned before, there were like 40,000 new factories in China just registered just to make face masks. You know, it's crazy.
Okay. Well, Chinese are good at one thing, finding opportunity, right, and moving fast. I don't think
Absolutely.
anybody will question those points, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
um, so I'm looking at my notes here. Yeah, like you've also helped with some machines. I know a lot of people around the world want to make their own, or sometimes they can't even buy overseas. Their countries or governments won't let them import, so people really want to start
Mhm.
to make it themselves. But even those are expensive and hard to get, right, for overseas, because you were talking about, maybe you can explain why.
Yeah, well, first of all, they're a little bit hard to get is because just the demand is so high. Like everyone is trying to buy them. Uh, and yeah, and a machine, of course, it takes more time to make than just than a mask, and it's also a bit harder. I mean, like the 3-ply mask. I mean, you just buy a machine, you just need the fabric, and you can start making it. But to make a machine, you need a much bigger factory, and you need a mold, and much bigger investment. So there are not that many factories who are capable of building the machines. So I think that's one of the reasons why it's harder to buy. And of course, also buying a machine. I mean, buying one machine is usually not enough. I mean, if you really want to mass produce, you need several machines, and a machine is anywhere between like $50,000 to $100,000.
Yeah.
So you need quite a big investment to start doing that.
Totally agree. I mean, but there are some people I talk to in the community, in my network, that are willing to buy it later when it gets normal, but they think for long term they don't want to have to like have their community or their country or their people like, stranded. Specifically, I'm thinking of the Philippines because I have a lot of people, friends and colleagues in the Philippines and things like that. So it's just crazy time.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that will change for sure. I mean, like you see it happening now. It's like when the virus broke out, every country is trying to protect itself, and they're limiting the export. And I mean, even the USA, they have a 3M factory in China, but they can't get their own goods because China had limited the export at that time. And even in the EU, like different countries are confiscating shipments and things like this. So I think after this whole thing is done, like every country, at least the bigger countries, would have like a small, at least, some small factory to make these basic PPE equipment. Like if anything ever happens again, that at least they have some supply of their own. Okay. And so they won't be like 100% completely dependent on import.
Agreed. All right. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. Thanks for sharing, and maybe a little bit more about you and what you're doing and how if people can find you or connect with you in your business.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, as I mentioned before, like we're into the digital signage, and our main product actually is the interactive whiteboards or smart boards or however you want to call them. And we were actually already busy developing like a new type, a new model before the virus, because we want to focus more on this product. But due to the virus, we see that actually the demand for this is actually much higher, or will be much higher than it is right now. But what we've seen is that for a lot of countries, a lot of people, that it's a bit expensive. Because if you want to have a decent interactive whiteboard, it would cost you a couple of $1,000s. And let's say you have a company or a school and you want to put one in every classroom or in every meeting room. I mean, if you have 50, that will cost you at least $50,000 or more. So we did a lot of research, and we've made our own design, and we've made now like kind of a budget interactive, which will probably be under $500 for our selling price.
Interesting.
So we hope to be able to contribute with that, especially to the lesser developed areas who can't afford buying a $5,000 or $10,000 interactive whiteboard. So we're busy with that, and it will be ready probably in May. And hopefully when the virus is over, we can launch it and start pushing it.
Okay, I'm just putting some notes. If maybe send me however people can connect with you, like LinkedIn or something, I can put in the show notes too.
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn, so Mohammed Berrekkal, or they can go to our website at bc and then -electronic.com. So that's bc-electronic.com.
Okay.
Or they can just connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message.
Okay, great. Got it. I'm putting it on the notes now so people can check it out. Thanks so much, Mohammed. Really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. You've been on my list, and then you've been in the I don't know what to say anymore, chaos. Well, I guess we all have, but you've witnessed it on both sides, and you've been steadily in China the whole time. So also another question, I guess I didn't bring it up, I sneak it in here, but we had another guest, Hugh Bell, a couple weeks ago, sharing about, the topic was fight or flight. Like he was considering, he's Irish, and he was considering he has a Hong Kongese wife and children, and he was thinking about going back to Europe. He decided not to. So did you ever consider leaving to maybe Holland or getting out of China at any time?
Yeah, well, actually, I have a lot of friends who left China at that time, and everyone was also pushing me to leave. But me and my wife, we refused to leave. mainly because what if I'm infected or my wife is infected and we go visit my family and my friends and then we infect them as well.
Yeah,
So yeah, so we just decided it's. I mean, that's, and also I believe that's the main cause for all of this chaos is everyone just starting to travel,
I know. I
and
feel,
A lot of Chinese left China, and a lot of foreigners left China.
yeah, it
Uh,
makes sense, right? They all spread it everywhere. Yeah,
yeah, so we yeah no we made the decision not to leave. So we really wanted to stay. Uh, I mean, it also, I mean, if we stay, I mean, I'm inside my home, that's okay. But if I fly, I'm in an airplane with 300 people that I don't know and who might be infected as well.
yeah,
So it's more risk for us. It's more risk for my family back home if I go back to Holland. So
agreed.
we didn't think it wise to travel. So we decided to stay.
Agreed. Yeah, for me, I flew back and I'm wearing a mask and like there was everybody in suits. It was nuts. There was people with the face shields, the goggles, the masks, the blue
Yeah,
suits. Like it was
hazmat
freaking nuts,
suits
man.
and
It felt like those movies.
it's surreal. Yeah, exactly. It really felt like a movie.
All right, buddy. Well, I hope things turn around for all of us and we can all get back on track. I know we've talked about that privately as well. So thanks for sharing your experiences and let's wish you and everyone else the best going forward.
Yeah, I wish everyone the best, and I hope everyone and their families are safe and that everyone can make it through this calamity stronger and better than before.
Definitely. We are considering an online version of crossbordersummit.com, but I'm getting mixed feedback from people that want to keep the brand as an offline, in-person event because it's just so valuable for the networking. It's not like a massive event where thousands of people come, but we're always going to keep it on a more smaller, higher level, higher value networking opportunity for people doing cross-border trade. But definitely keep the thing on your calendar. You know, we don't know when this lockdown will end, but we have November 19th and 20th in Thailand on the calendar. Just pencil that in there. It would be great to see you. And we are working hard to keep this community roaring. Thank you so much, Mohammed, for sharing. I learned some new insights there, and I hope everybody, you know, the year 2020 has been nuts. You know, I told you I came to Manila. I didn't know anything about, I think I heard about this virus, but didn't seem like a big deal when I was going to the airport to Manila in early January 2020. But this year, then it hit the volcano, and now all this insanity of this virus from the China side to the international side, it's really rocked, I guess, everybody, but especially this whole cross-border trading world that we're in. Still deciding when to do this cross-border summit. We might skip 2020, but if anything, it's November, so we got some time. Although we usually start planning more by now. It takes many, many months to plan those things. But so I said it would talk about in a blah, blah, blah session, but I think Mo mentioned it in the interview, but he's in a factory. He's a part of a factory. I mentioned, and as he said in the interview, they pivoted or temporarily do these digital thermometers in the PPE world, and he's saying he's getting people adding them on WeChat asking for 50 million thermometers for, like, say, the Europe market or a government. They say they're an agent of a government and they need 50 million. So how much is that? 50 million times what's the price of a thermometer? You know, we're talking about billions of US dollars. So, you know, Mo, like many of us, are getting kind of tired of these because, you know, anybody knows import-export trading is B2B sales or business development. A lot of it is a lot of relationship building and talking and getting to know each other, and a lot of times the deals don't get through. But I think a lot of people over the last month or so have been just really getting overloaded with people with these crazy requests, and they by the time you finish answering all their questions, they're when it's time to actually make a deal, that's when they kind of disappear. So a lot of people are getting sick and tired of that because maybe these people are just, I don't know, they're just trying to make deals. They're trying to get in the middle. They know the government they're living in is looking for thermometers, so then they start going online looking for thermometer factories. They're trying to kind of be in the middle, trying to make some money. You know, I understand that. I do. Honestly, we're all entrepreneurs and business owners, but you know, to go so far. So what's happening with, like, many of these factories are asking for LOIs, letter of intent. They're asking for POF or proof of funds. They're just really sick and tired of these people all over the internet finding them and adding them and asking them for millions and millions of products for millions or billions of dollars. So it's just been insanity. Same with me. I see this all the time. People saying they want multi-millions of dollars, like 800 million masks and stuff like this. It just seems insane. And then it's nuts, because then sometimes the factory will ask for payment up front. Bank money in the bank before they can go to the factory, do a video call, see if there's even stock. It's really insane times, and it just seems like there's got to be a lot of scams. Even governments, we've heard in the news, have gotten scammed because there's some smart, fast-talking sales style people that can maybe convince a factory and say that they have this stock, pay me in this bank account, pay in the money, then all of a sudden they disappear. It's really horrible. But I'm really scared because sometimes it uses our reputations. Where are these connectors, where are these people in the community, and things are happening so fast. And there is some truth to not having time. You do got to make moves fast. But I think we should all just be careful. I hope none of you have gotten into bad deals. And I just wish everybody the best in this. But, Mohammed, I hope your factory gets a 50 million thermometer order. It seems, I wonder what these people are thinking. I mean, how many thermometers would a country need? I mean, even in the U.S., there's 300 million people population. So let's just do the math. 300 divided by 50, that means 1 out of 6 people would need a thermometer. That seems like pretty high penetration for thermometers that you would scan when somebody enters a restaurant. So I hope there's not too many scammers. I hope these people go away. I mean, it's made our lives all nightmares because they export on the China side, they import in the other countries. Just those legitimate people trying to do business, and then there's a lot of these people trying to just scam the system, which is especially sad in this pandemic nightmare. So I hope those people can find something else to do. Maybe they don't have anything else to do and they're trying to rip people off. Maybe that reporter's right. I shouldn't say which company, but it was a reporter that was talking to me for an hour on a call. And then, honestly, I should record those as podcasts. But she was going on and saying that she feels like there's so many of these people just trying to jump in the middle of this, making some money, opportunists, similar to the ICO rush, similar to like the fidget spinners, similar to these other trends that pop in and out. Maybe I honestly feel like there is some truth to that. But I was also laughing with Mo on the call afterwards. We're just saying we got to have a nice steak dinner and a really nice restaurants after all this nightmare, and just talk about all of this insanity. He says he sent a whole bunch of thermometers from his factory to the export, to the customs in China to export to a customer. And then they said the policy changed and there's some kind of new regulations and paperwork and procedure, and they needed to send the thermometers back to his company or his factory to do some new testing on it. And then by the time it got back to the factory, he says the customs in China says, oh, sorry, forget that. No need to do that. Just bring it back. So they're just trucking back and forth these products. Things are changing daily here. It's really nuts. It's technically it's the last day April I record our intro and outro. But we'll get into May, and all these countries are just changing policies. There's political reasons, there's face issues. China doesn't want to keep getting bad press about bad quality, so they're making it harder. It's really nuts. It's people I talked to have gained a lot of weight, lost a lot of weight. Plus everybody's stuck at home. Let's all just stay safe and go back to listen to the last couple of shows with the transformation or the search for Shangri-La. I'm honestly looking forward to calming things down soon. But right now, this PPE mania and wave riding is nuts. If anybody in the import-export world must be seeing this in their emails and on their communities. So stay safe. Don't lose your reputation. Think about the long term. But you can also get some pretty good relationships in this time, right? So make the most of it. Also, check out loadpipe.com if you want to get in our community. It's private. Application only, but it would be cool to see you on some of our webinars. Thank you so much for listening, and be safe out there. Bye-bye.
To get more info about running an international business, please visit our website at www.globalfromasia.com. That's www.globalfromasia.com. Also, be sure to subscribe to our iTunes feed. Thanks for tuning in.